Do you remember those moments when you looked at a project and thought, how cool would it be to do this, but then put it off for later, and that later has been going on for several years now? So 10 years ago my dad gave me this book on ribbon embroidery, thanks Dad, and its time has come. I have this tote bag that I don't use, and this black frame is just begging to have something added inside it. And just then my eyes fell on this book. There among the pages I found the perfect project to fill this frame. This one. I immediately imagined how awesome this picture would look. And I decided to give away this bag, more about it later. The materials we will need of course are the tote bag, embroidery hoop, I have one that is 20 cm in diameter, Mouline threads, different colors, Tapestry needle for ribbons, it has a rounded tip, regular needle, and finally ribbons. The book says to use 4mm white ribbons, but I just couldn't find any like that at all. Maybe 10 years ago that was the standard, but definitely not now. So I have 6mm white ones. I think it's not too critical. I have already transferred the sketch onto the fabric and stretched it on the embroidery hoop. First I started with the outline of the house. I used only 4 strands from the Mouline thread, but it's better to choose a darker color so it doesn't blend with the background. I used a seam stitch for the outlines of the house, bricks, door and window. Next, with dark blue thread you need to make the window panes using diagonal stitches. Also using diagonal stitches but in both directions, you need to do the door panels. The crossbars on the door should be done with satin stitches and the inner outlines of the door with seam stitches. I made the climbing roses above the door and below the window using French knots. I used pale green, pink and violet threads below the window and pale green, green and dark golden threads around the door. Probably about 60% of all the time I spent on this project was making these French knots. I even got a blister on my finger, so I don't recommend choosing a picture with so many of them for the first time, to avoid going crazy. Perhaps they could be made from ribbon, then they would be more voluminous and take less time, I don't know. But the French knot as a door handle is superb. I made the paved path using beige thread with back stitches. I started with small stones at the top edge of the path, gradually increasing their size as I moved towards the bottom edge. Finally, I took the ribbon. To thread the ribbon through the needle, you need to use a tapestry needle with a large eye. Cut the ribbon diagonally, thread the ribbon and pierce it with the needle about 5mm from the edge. A knot will form which you need to move to the top. And at the other end of the ribbon you simply need to tie a knot. I made the daisy petals with straight stitches using white ribbon. To make the petals more voluminous, you can spread the ribbon at the entry and exit points. Actually, ideally, each stitch should be secured on the back using a thin needle and thread, but I only secured it at the end. Each daisy should be completed with French knots made from yellow thread to create the center. And I also embroidered the grass around the daisies with green thread using straight stitches. Under the daisies we have ruffled flowers made from pink and violet ribbons. To make them you need to cut a piece of ribbon 5 cm long. Make a stitch along the center of the ribbon with small stitches. Bring the needle to the back side, sewing through both the fabric and the end of the ribbon, at the starting point. The edges of the ribbon should be stacked on top of each other. Pull the thread to gather the ribbon and secure the thread on the back side. Also, I cinched satin ribbons with a lighter on both sides before starting. This is my progress after approximately 100 years of working on this embroidery. The lower flowers still need to be surrounded by French knots, but I will do it later. For now, I've decided to try embroidering on the beach. The tall flowers on the right are done the same way. It's a ruffled stitch, just made one above the other using pale yellow and cold yellow ribbons. And it's time to go back home. Around each flower I made green branches with straight stitches. Below them I embroidered fan-shaped groups, also with straight stitches. I used pale green thread with twisted straight stitches to create horizontal lines representing the lawn. Next, let's make my favorite Concertina roses. For this, cut about 25 cm of ribbon. Fold it in the center at a right angle. Then continue folding the ribbon like an accordion. Holding the ribbon tightly, thread the needle through to the back. First, pull both ends of the ribbon until you reach the start of the accordion. Then pull only one end of the ribbon, it doesn't matter which, to form the rose. Finally, you need to secure the ribbon on the back. Additionally, I make a small stitch in the center of the rose to keep it from falling apart. The previous rose is quite complex, but this one is very easy to make and looks very impressive. Make 5 stitches with regular thread, preferably matching the color of the ribbon. Pull the ribbon through the center of the stitches. Then weave the ribbon under the thread, over the thread, under the thread, over the thread until you achieve the desired result. The less you pull the ribbon, the fluffier the rose will be. I made another patch of daisies on the side. Around the woven roses I made leaves using pale green thread. I'm filling the remaining area with 5-petal flowers using pale violet, violet and dark violet ribbons. Each petal is made using the ruffled flower technique we used before. The center is filled with French knots. The more gaps I fill with these flowers, the fewer French knots I will need to make for the grass later on. The last flowers. In the center of each yellow flower I made the French knot. Last on the list, I am filling in the gaps with grass using French knots. Thank you so much for watching this video. Also, my channel is still very small. I want to give away this tote bag. I wanted to have a bright life, so to speak. To do this, you need to subscribe to the channel, like this video and leave a comment with an idea for our next one. Leave your Instagram so I can contact you. I will announce the results on Instagram on July 10. And now let's look at the final result.